Today, I want to talk about a powerful and important topic presented in the documentary Poverty in the USA, being poor in the world's richest country. The documentary highlights a surprising and uncomfortable truth. Even in one of the richest nations on earth, millions of people still struggle with poverty. The United States is often seen as a land of opportunity, innovation, and wealth. It has some of the world's biggest companies, advanced technology, and a very high standard of living. However, the documentary reveals that behind this image, many families are fighting daily just to afford food, housing, healthcare, and education. Poverty in the United States does not always look the way people expect. It is not only homelessness or extreme hunger. Many people who are considered poor actually have jobs. They work long hours in low-paying jobs, but still cannot earn enough to meet basic living costs. This situation is often called the working poor. The documentary shows how rising housing prices, expensive healthcare, and low wages make it extremely difficult for some families to escape poverty. Even a small emergency, like a medical bill or car repair, can push families deeper in a financial crisis. Another important issue highlighted is inequality. While some Americans enjoy great wealth, others struggle to survive. This gap between rich and poor has grown over time, creating social and economic challenges. Education and opportunity also play a big role. Many people born into poor communities face limited access to quality schools, stable jobs, and resources. As a result, poverty can continue from one generation to the next. However, the documentary also shows resilience and hope. Many individuals work hard, support their families, and try to build better futures despite the obstacles they face. It also highlights the importance of social programs, community support, and policy changes to help reduce poverty. In conclusion, the documentary reminds us that poverty is not only a problem of developing countries. Even in wealthy nations, millions of people struggle. Understanding their stories helps us realize that solving poverty requires awareness, compassion, and collective action. The documentary Poverty in the USA, being poor in the world's richest country focuses on the reality of poverty in one of the most economically powerful nations in the world, the United States. It explores how millions of people live in difficult financial situations despite the country's strong economy, technological advancement, and global influence. Many people around the world believe that life in the United States is comfortable for everyone, but the documentary challenges this belief by showing the struggles faced by low-income families. Through real-life stories, interviews, and examples, the documentary highlights how poverty affects individuals and families in different ways. Some people struggle to afford basic necessities such as food, housing, healthcare, and transportation. Others work multiple jobs, but still cannot earn enough to cover their daily expenses. These stories reveal that poverty is not always visible and that many people experiencing it are ordinary workers trying to support their families. The documentary also explains how poverty can affect people's opportunities in life. Children growing up in poor communities may have limited access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, and good health care. These challenges can make it harder for them to succeed later in life, creating a cycle where poverty continues from one generation to the next. Another important aspect shown in the documentary is the emotional and psychological impact of poverty. Financial stress can cause anxiety, depression, and constant worry about the future. Families often have to make difficult decisions, such as choosing between paying rent, buying food, or covering medical expenses. By presenting these real experiences, the documentary helps viewers understand that poverty in the United States is a complex social issue influenced by factors such as wages, housing costs, healthcare expenses, and economic inequality. It encourages viewers to think more deeply about the challenges faced by millions of people who live in poverty, even in a country known for its wealth and opportunity. The United States is widely recognized as one of the most economically powerful and wealthy nations in the world. It has one of the largest economies, advanced technology, global corporations, and a high level of productivity. Cities across the country are known for their modern infrastructure, large businesses, and high standards of living. Because of this global image, many people assume that most Americans enjoy financial stability and comfortable lives. However, the documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country reveals a different side of this reality. Despite the country's massive wealth, millions of Americans struggle with poverty. Many families find it difficult to afford basic necessities such as housing, food, healthcare, childcare, and transportation. Even though the nation produces enormous wealth, that wealth is not distributed equally among its population. A major issue highlighted in the documentary is the growing gap between rich and poor. While some individuals and corporations earn extremely high incomes and accumulate large amounts of wealth, others work long hours in low-paying jobs and still cannot cover their living expenses. This economic inequality means that prosperity is not experienced equally across society. The documentary also explains that poverty in the United States often exists within large cities as well as rural communities. In big urban areas, the cost of living is very high. Rent, healthcare, and education can be extremely expensive, which puts pressure on low-income families. In rural areas, job opportunities may be limited, wages may be lower, and access to services like healthcare and transportation can be more difficult. Another factor contributing to poverty is the rising cost of everyday life. Over the years, the prices of housing, education, and medical care have increased faster than wages for many workers. As a result, even people who have jobs may struggle to maintain financial stability. A single unexpected expense, such as a medical emergency or a car repair, can quickly push families into serious financial hardship. The documentary highlights how this situation challenges the common perception of the American dream. While the United States offers many opportunities for success, the reality is that millions of people still face economic difficulties that limit their ability to improve their living conditions. One of the most important ideas highlighted in the documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country, is that poverty is not always easy to recognize. Many people imagine poverty as homelessness, extreme hunger, or people living on the streets. While those situations do exist, the reality is often more complex. A large number of people living in poverty actually have jobs, homes, and families, but their income is still not enough to meet the high cost of living. In the United States, millions of individuals work every day in sectors such as retail, restaurants, cleaning services, construction, delivery, and caregiving. These workers play an important role in the economy, yet many of these jobs offer low wages and limited benefits. Even when people work full-time or take on multiple jobs, they may still struggle to afford rent, groceries, healthcare, transportation, and other essential needs. Because these individuals are employed and may appear to live ordinary lives, their financial struggles are often hidden. From the outside, they might seem stable, but behind the scenes they may be dealing with serious financial pressure. Some families rely on food banks, government assistance programs, or community support to survive, even though they are actively working. The documentary explains that this type of poverty is sometimes referred to as hidden poverty. People experiencing it may live in small apartments, share housing with several family members, or constantly move in search of cheaper rent. They may also delay medical treatment, skip meals, or avoid necessary expenses in order to pay bills. Another challenge faced by these workers is the lack of financial security. Many low-wage jobs do not provide health insurance, paid leave, or stable working hours. If someone becomes sick, loses a shift, or faces an emergency expense, their financial situation can quickly become worse. Without savings or strong support systems, even small setbacks can create serious difficulties. The documentary shows that employment alone does not always guarantee financial stability. For many workers, the combination of low wages, rising living costs, and limited benefits makes it extremely difficult to escape poverty. This reality challenges the common assumption that having a job automatically protects people from economic hardship. The documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country introduces an important concept: known as the working poor. This term refers to people who are employed but still live in poverty because their income is not enough to cover their basic living expenses. In the United States, many individuals work full-time jobs, and some even work multiple jobs, yet they continue to struggle financially. The idea of the working poor challenges a common belief that employment automatically leads to financial stability. While having a job is an important step toward independence, many jobs in certain industries pay very low wages. Workers in sectors such as retail, food service, hospitality, agriculture, and caregiving often earn hourly wages that are not enough to support themselves or their families, especially in areas where the cost of living is high. The documentary shows that even when people work long hours, their earnings may still fall below what is needed for a basic standard of living. Rent, food, transportation, healthcare, and childcare expenses can quickly consume most of a worker's income. After paying these essential costs, many families have very little money left for savings or emergencies. Another challenge faced by the working poor is unstable employment conditions. Many low-income workers have jobs with irregular schedules, temporary contracts, or part-time hours. This means their income can change from week to week, making it difficult to plan for the future or maintain financial stability. Some workers may be scheduled for fewer hours than they need, which reduces their total income even if they are willing to work more. Benefits and workplace protections are also limited for many workers in low-wage positions. Some employers do not provide health insurance, paid sick leave, or retirement plans. Without these benefits, workers must pay for important services themselves, which adds further pressure on their already limited income. The documentary highlights how this situation creates a cycle of financial stress. Even though people are working hard and contributing to the economy, they may still struggle to afford decent housing, proper health care, and educational opportunities for their children. Their efforts to improve their lives are often slowed by the high cost of living and limited economic opportunities available to them. One of the major issues highlighted in the documentary Poverty in the USA, being poor in the world's richest country, is the rising cost of housing and how it affects low-income families. In the United States, housing is often the largest monthly expense for most households. For families living on low wages, the cost of rent or home ownership can take up a very large portion of their income, leaving little money for other essential needs such as food, healthcare, transportation, and education. In many cities across the United States, housing prices have increased significantly over the past few decades. Urban areas with more job opportunities often have very expensive housing markets. As a result, many low-income workers cannot afford to live close to their workplaces. They may be forced to move to cheaper neighborhoods that are far away from city centers, which increases commuting time and transportation costs. The documentary shows that many families spend more than half of their income on rent alone. When such a large portion of income goes toward housing, it becomes extremely difficult to manage other expenses. If rent increases even slightly, families may struggle to keep up with payments. This situation can lead to evictions, frequent relocations, or overcrowded living conditions. Another issue related to housing costs is the shortage of affordable housing. In many areas, there are not enough low-cost homes or apartments available for people with limited incomes. This forces families to compete for a small number of affordable units, which often leads to long waiting lists for housing assistance programs or public housing. The documentary also highlights how unstable housing affects people's lives in many ways. Families who are constantly moving or worried about losing their homes may experience emotional stress and insecurity. Children in these families may have to change schools frequently, which can disrupt their education and social development. In addition, poor housing conditions can create health and safety problems. Some low-income families are forced to live in older buildings with issues such as poor heating, mold, overcrowding, or lack of maintenance. These conditions can negatively affect physical health and overall quality of life. High housing costs, therefore, play a significant role in maintaining poverty, as families who spend most of their income on rent have fewer opportunities to save money, invest in education, or improve their living conditions. Another major issue highlighted in the documentary Poverty in the USA, being poor in the world's richest country, is the high cost of healthcare and how it affects low-income families in the United States. Healthcare in the United States is known for its advanced technology and high-quality medical services, but is also one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the world. For many people living in poverty or near poverty, paying for medical care can become a serious financial burden. Many workers in low-paying jobs do not receive health insurance from their employers. Without insurance, even basic medical treatments such as doctor visits, medical tests, medications, or hospital care can be extremely costly. A single medical emergency, such as an accident, serious illness, or surgery, can result in very large bills that families cannot afford to pay. The documentary shows that some families are forced to make difficult decisions because of these costs. They may delay visiting a doctor when they feel sick, avoid buying prescribed medications, or skip regular medical checkups in order to save money. While these decisions may help them manage their finances in the short term, they can lead to more serious health problems later. Another challenge is that even people who have health insurance may still face high medical expenses. Insurance plans often require patients to pay deductibles, co-payments, and other out-of-pocket costs before full coverage begins. For families already struggling to afford basic living expenses, these additional medical costs can quickly create financial stress. The documentary also explains that medical debt is a common problem in the United States. When families cannot pay their hospital bills, they may accumulate large debts that take years to repay. This debt can affect their credit scores, limit their ability to rent housing, or make it harder to obtain loans for education or other needs. Healthcare expenses can therefore trap families in a cycle of poverty. When people spend a large portion of their income on medical bills, they have less money available for housing, food, and other necessities. In some cases, individuals may even lose their jobs due to illness or injury, which further reduces their financial stability. The high cost of healthcare demonstrates how unexpected health problems can quickly turn into economic crises for families who already live with limited financial resources. The documentary Poverty in the USA, being poor in the world's richest country, also highlights the growing problem of economic inequality in the United States. Economic inequality refers to the large and widening gap between people who have a great deal of wealth and those who struggle to meet their basic needs. Although the United States has created enormous wealth through industries, businesses, and technological innovation, that wealth is not shared equally among all members of society. Over the years, the income and wealth of the richest individuals and large corporations have grown significantly. Many wealthy people earn money not only through high salaries, but also through investments, property ownership, and business profits. At the same time, wages for many low and middle-income workers have grown much more slowly. This imbalance has caused the gap between rich and poor to expand. The documentary explains that this inequality can be seen in many aspects of daily life. Wealthy individuals often have access to better housing, high-quality education, advanced health care, and greater financial security. They can invest in businesses, save money for the future, and provide more opportunities for their children. In contrast, families living in poverty may struggle to afford basic necessities and may not have the same opportunities to improve their financial situation. Economic inequality also affects communities and neighborhoods. In wealthier areas, schools often have more resources, safer environments, and better facilities. Children growing up in these communities may receive stronger educational support and have greater access to extracurricular activities and career opportunities. Meanwhile, poorer neighborhoods may have fewer resources, underfunded schools, and limited job opportunities, which can make it harder for residents to escape poverty. Another issue connected to economic inequality is social mobility. Social mobility refers to the ability of individuals to improve their economic position through education, hard work, and opportunity. The documentary suggests that when the gap between rich and poor becomes too large, it becomes more difficult for people from low-income backgrounds to move upward in society. This growing inequality can create tension and challenges within society because people experience very different living conditions depending on their economic status. While some individuals benefit from the country's economic growth, others may feel left behind and struggle to keep up with rising costs and limited opportunities. The documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country, also emphasizes how limited access to education and opportunities can keep individuals and families trapped in poverty. In the United States, education is often considered one of the most important paths to success and economic stability. However, not everyone has equal access to high-quality education and opportunities that can help them improve their lives. Children growing up in low-income families often face many challenges from an early age. Their parents may struggle to provide learning resources such as books, computers, tutoring, or educational activities. Some families may also live in neighborhoods where schools have fewer resources, larger class sizes, and limited facilities. As a result, students from poor communities may not receive the same level of educational support as students from wealthier areas. The documentary shows that schools in poorer neighborhoods may lack funding for modern technology, updated learning materials, and extracurricular programs. These limitations can affect the quality of education that students receive. Without strong educational foundations, many young people may find it difficult to compete for higher education opportunities or well-paying jobs in the future. Another challenge is the high cost of college education in the United States. University tuition, textbooks, housing, and other related expenses can be extremely expensive. For students from low-income families, paying for college may seem impossible without financial aid or scholarships. Some students may choose not to continue their education after high school because they cannot afford it, while others may take large student loans that create financial pressure later in life. Limited opportunities are not only related to education, but also to employment and career development. In some communities, there may be fewer job opportunities, limited professional networks, and less access to career guidance. Without these resources, individuals may find it difficult to secure stable and well-paying jobs. The documentary also highlights how these barriers can create a cycle of poverty. When people cannot access quality education or good employment opportunities, their chances of improving their financial situation become smaller. This situation can affect entire families and communities as the lack of opportunities continues from one generation to the next. The documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country highlights how poverty is not just an individual problem, but a generational challenge, meaning that children born into low-income families often face a much higher risk of remaining in poverty as adults. In the United States, systemic factors, social conditions, and limited opportunities can combine to create a cycle that is difficult to break. Children growing up in poor households often experience a lack of access to essential resources such as nutritious food, safe housing, healthcare, and educational support. These early disadvantages can affect physical health, cognitive development, and emotional well-being, making it harder for them to perform well in school or develop the skills needed for future employment. The documentary emphasizes that these challenges are not simply about individual effort. They're shaped by structural conditions that affect entire communities. Education plays a central role in the generational transmission of poverty. Schools in underfunded neighborhoods may lack qualified teachers, advanced learning materials, extracurricular programs, or college preparatory guidance. As a result, children from these areas may face lower educational outcomes, limited college opportunities, and fewer career prospects. Without access to quality education, it becomes extremely difficult for them to secure well-paying jobs as adults, perpetuating the cycle of poverty. Economic and social environments also reinforce this generational pattern. Families living paycheck to paycheck may have limited savings, which makes them more vulnerable to emergencies such as medical bills, car repairs, or unexpected layoffs. Children growing up in financially unstable households may witness stress, anxiety, and limited social mobility, which can shape their expectations for the future. In many cases, the The lessons learned from these experiences about budgeting, employment, and opportunity are constrained by the scarcity of resources rather than by personal ability or ambition. Moreover, access to professional networks, mentorship, and career guidance is often limited for low-income families. Without exposure to opportunities that wealthier peers might take for granted, children may struggle to enter higher-paying careers or pursue entrepreneurial endeavors. Even with talent and determination, the lack of social and economic capital can make upward mobility very difficult. The documentary demonstrates that breaking this cycle requires more than individual effort. It involves addressing systemic barriers such as unequal education, lack of affordable housing, insufficient health care, and economic inequality. By understanding how poverty can be transmitted from one generation to the next, the film urges viewers to recognize the structural challenges that keep millions of families trapped in financial hardship. The documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country emphasizes that addressing poverty in the United States requires a multifaceted approach, including raising public awareness, strengthening social support systems, and implementing effective policy changes. Poverty is not just a matter of individual responsibility. It is a complex social and economic issue influenced by structural inequality, insufficient wages, high living costs, and limited access to education and health care. Awareness plays a crucial role in combating poverty because many people are unaware of the struggles faced by low-income families. The documentary highlights stories that show poverty is often hidden, affecting not only the unemployed, but also millions of working individuals who cannot make ends meet. By telling these stories, the film encourages society to see poverty as a systemic problem rather than a personal failure. Increased public understanding can lead to stronger advocacy for policies and programs that support vulnerable populations. Social support programs are another essential element in reducing poverty. Programs such as food assistance, affordable housing, childcare support, healthcare subsidies, and job training can provide immediate relief to families struggling to survive. The documentary shows that without these safety nets, many families would face even greater hardships. Access to these programs helps people maintain stability, pursue education, and work toward long-term financial security. Policy changes are critical for creating sustainable solutions. The documentary points out that legislation addressing minimum wage, healthcare affordability, taxation, and housing can have a profound impact on reducing poverty levels. For instance, raising the minimum wage or providing universal health care could significantly decrease the number of families living paycheck to paycheck. Similarly, policies that promote equal access to quality education, job training, and affordable housing can empower individuals to improve their economic situation and break the cycle of poverty. The film also emphasizes that reducing poverty is not only about financial support, but also about creating opportunities for empowerment. Policies and programs that focus on education, workforce development, and community resources help individuals gain the skills and confidence needed to build better lives for themselves and their families. Community involvement, advocacy, and social awareness can amplify these efforts, ensuring that support reaches the people who need it most. Ultimately, the documentary shows that addressing poverty in the United States requires a combination of awareness, social programs, and structural changes. It encourages society to take collective responsibility for ensuring that all individuals, regardless of income, have the opportunity to live with dignity, security, and the possibility for upward mobility. In conclusion, the documentary Poverty in the USA, Being Poor in the World's Richest Country reminds us that poverty is not just a distant problem or a situation that only affects certain people. It exists right here, even in the world's wealthiest country. By understanding the struggles of those living paycheck to paycheck, the working poor, and families facing generational poverty, we are called to action. It challenges us to see beyond statistics and stereotypes, to recognize the humanity and resilience of those affected, and to advocate for solutions that provide real opportunities. Whether through raising awareness, supporting social programs, or pushing for meaningful policy changes, each of us has a role in creating a society where no one has to choose between food, shelter, and healthcare. Ultimately, the fight against poverty is not just about economics. It is about fairness, compassion, and the belief that every person deserves a chance to thrive. By listening, understanding, and acting, we can help ensure that the American dream becomes attainable for all, not just a privileged few.